That's right.
usurping what is often cited as not just the best film of 1941, but one of the best films, if not the best film ever made.
It is the
High
most
praise,
commonly agreed upon best film ever made.
which is a little wild for literally any movie to just
Yeah.
that is a consensus. But we made it here. This was like at the start of our show. We were like, hey, Citizen Kane, weird to watch in the modern context. Maybe if we watched every movie, maybe if we watched a bunch of movies from every year from the beginning of cinema as a thing that existed, maybe it would land a little different. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
so
This is
I say to you this: what do you think it landed any differently for you rewatching it
a little
after
bit.
having like yeah same like, a little bit. I did think I
Yeah,
liked it. I liked it more watching it this most recent time than I have before.
yeah, yeah. Yes. I mean, this is a big moment in a lot of ways because like this is like the whole like premise. This is like the whole premise of all of this, you know? Like it was hearing the way that people talk about Citizen Kane that
Right.
made me want to do this in the first place.
Yeah.
Because this whole argument of like it was ahead of its time. It was or not ahead of its time, but it was like leaps and bounds ahead of everything else. It felt like the beginning of a new era, and you know, not exactly. Like I'm not
Yeah.
saying that there isn't like some really good stuff in this movie. This is a really good movie,
Yeah.
you know. But like, do I like uh do I like The Thief of Baghdad more? Like probably, you know.
Right. And that's the thing. I think, especially watching in the context of like, you know, we didn't watch every movie ever made up until this point, but like the broad strokes of like the history of filmmaking up until Citizen Kane. It's not that it's that innovative. I don't think it's just the fact that it's very good. Like it's using a lot of different techniques and it is doing some things that are fairly, if not groundbreaking, that are new, that are like uncommon, that aren't really tools that are being used a whole lot.
Yeah.
But it's less about how much it's doing that's new and how much if it's just like using all the tools to the maximum effect. And it's just like gathering all
Yeah.
this stuff together and just making a really robust, really well made movie.
Robust is the word for sure.
And also the fact that it's like a 25-year-old dude who'd never made a movie before, who also produced and stars in it. It's just like, come on, man. Come on. Leave something for the rest of us.
Yeah, I think that a lot of what people ascribe to this movie, as far as its advances, they are technical. They are
Yes. They're
they're
all like cinematography stuff for the most. Well, and screenwriting also, I think. There's a lot of structural stuff.
that's part of why part of why in you know kind of imagining this, I thought that like this whole podcast, I was like, I feel like I want your insight specifically as someone who
Hmm.
knows more about film form from that perspective, because I look at what before I did this, I looked at Citizen Kane and I was like, okay, like there are some fancy shots, but like what formally is this doing that's so wild? Like I don't
Yeah.
understand it. No.
Well, I think
Um
also, yeah, I think compared to a lot of like late period silent movies, there's a lot of really great, really cool use of form stuff in this movie. But like compared to like Sunrise or like I think there were earlier movies that kind of stand out more. Just like, damn, I can't believe that they were doing this at this period in time, you know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that like maybe what this does is draws into relief the kind of formal backslide that happened when they went to sound film.
Hmm.
This movie starts off with that like shot of the snow globe, and like you can see the hand in the snow globe, and you can see like the person entering through the door through the snow
Yeah,
globe. And
yeah,
it's like a wild shot. Like a lot of the there are individual shots in this movie that feel pretty like avant-garde, pretty like German expressionist, honestly just really showy German silent film, you know? And a lot of like the kind of technical stuff they did in this movie to allow for that was like, how can we do a lot of this wacky camera stuff that used to be possible in a sound movie? For example,
Mhm.
part of why I wanted to do all of this, again, backing up to the premise of this podcast, is it's like, would I recognize the things that are different in this movie? Right? The
Mm.
things that everyone says are big different things that this movie does. And some I did, but some I didn't. I last night I listened to the commentary on the movie by Roger Ebert, and he was
Mm.
pointing out that you could see the ceilings of rooms in this
Yeah.
movie, and like that was like a crazy thing, and
Also,
they,
you
you
can
know,
see the
they
ceiling
made
in How
this.
Green Was My Valley.
Right? Yeah, it's like they were like that's such a crazy thing. Like they did all of this stuff. Like the ceilings were not made out of plaster. They took fabric and spread it across the top so that they could hide lights and microphones in the ceiling right above
Mm.
people. And make it look like it was a ceiling, but it was made out of fabric. And it's like that was so that they could have all of these low angles and that you could see the ceilings, and how crazy it is that you could see the ceiling. I was like, I didn't notice that, you know? Like I noticed like the I noticed there's a lot of like really dramatic like shots like from low down, but like
Mhm.
did I think about the ceilings? Like no, you know?
Right, yeah. Right, because that's the thing that it's like, ideally, you're not supposed to be thinking about the ceilings in this. This is not a movie about ceilings. So it's like you're not supposed to notice any of that stuff. And I think that the stuff that about this movie that I think is, again, not necessarily that innovative, but it's just done really well, is the kind of like the structure of it. I think is pretty like adventurous for the time, in that it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
it is the story of someone's life told not entirely out of order, but somewhat out of order, and sort of we're seeing different people who knew him's perspective on him. So it's like kind of, it's not doing a Rashomon thing that they kind of like contradict each other, but it's like, right, it's the reporter is like interviewing all the different people who knew this guy after he
Yeah.
dies, and each of these people is kind of giving us insight into like a different part of who he was as a person.
Mhm.
That I think is that's a very cool and interesting way to structure a movie like this. Also, the fact that it's like kind of a biopic of a fictional, loose, fictionalized person. Um, like
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
I
that.
think the writing of it is maybe the thing that feels the most genuinely like adventurous or innovative. Even if
Hmm.
it's, I don't think any individual thing it's doing is necessarily hasn't been done before. It's just sort of like, oh, this is like a cool take that feels fresh.
Yeah, one of the other kind of things that is often cited that it does that was ahead of its time or different for the time was like that there's a lot of shots with really deep focus, and
Mhm. Yeah.
like I don't know, maybe
Again, something you're
like
not supposed to notice.
right, right. It's like I didn't immediately notice that. It just kind of feels like part of the stylistic texture of the movie. But if you asked me if it could have been part of the stylistic texture of a movie from the 20s or a movie from 5 years earlier, I could have been like, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, why not, you know?
Right. It doesn't necessarily stick out as much as yeah, I guess I thought it might. I think also because like movies before this didn't have incredibly shallow focus either. Like this had a lot of
Yeah.
wide shots with like pretty deep focus already. So the fact that there's a couple shots in Citizen Kane that are like really crazy, where there's like someone in focus in the like the deep background, and there's like a close up of someone like right next to the camera, and they're both in focus.
Although the most famous shot where that happens, it is not actually deep focus. It was two
There's
planes that they
through
filmed
through the
separately.
window.
Oh no, or that's definitely one. I was think there's one where Kane is writing the negative review for
Mhm.
Susan Alexander's
Yeah,
opera, and then his friend is like far back in the background. Part of what they had to do to make those deep focus scenes work was dump a whole lot of light into the background area,
yeah. Because to
because I
get
guess.
deep focus, you have to stop the aperture all the way down. The more light you let into a
Mhm.
lens, the shallower the focus is going to be.
Hmm.
So especially for like a dark scene like that, you have to keep the aperture all the way closed. There's not a lot of light is coming in, and then just like blast lights on the actors so you can see them.
Right. Huh. Yeah. I mean, I
Then it
think, and
was a
that's
thing
like
in this movie that they
that
had to do.
stuff is like really masterful, right? Like they have
Yeah,
the I think that like one of the strongest parts of this movie are like the kind of visual compositions and blocking and all of that. Like,
blocking the scene transitions in this movie are so good. That's the thing that I
yeah,
think probably stuck out to me the most on this most recent watch was like so many great scene transitions. Even if it's like a simple thing of just like I don't know, a lot of like match cuts, a lot of like part of the scene fades before another part of the scene, and then that kind of is like sort of
yeah.
lined up with part of the set or something like that. They're just like the scene transitions are so well thought out and are always like, damn, that was a really good transition.
Right in the beginning of the movie, there is a part where it's slowly getting closer and closer and closer to the window where Kane is dying. And it zooms to the outside of Xanadu of his castle, and then it gets to
Xanadu.
a closer shot of the outside of his window. Then the background fades out. Then the foreground like dissolves into, how does it work? The it's it's a really wild shot. It's turning the perspective 180 degrees, where it's going from one side of the window to the other side, and it
Mhm.
makes it so seamless through its kind of
Yeah.
use of light, and that you can't even recognize that you're moving from one shot to the other. It's kind of incredible.
Mm.
You phase from one side of the window and the bed to the other side of the window and the bed, and it does it just through like, you drop the light out of the background, you fade from the foreground from one foreground to the other, and then you kind of like disguise that by fading back, by like bringing the light back up on like the new foreground. So you're kind of like transitioning the foreground and background at different times, and
Mm.
leading the focus on the thing, keeping the focus on the thing that isn't changing, so that the change in the shot is completely imperceptible to you. It's and like that kind of thing, along with like what you're talking about, where they are like really carefully um crafting the light situation across a really deep shot with like a lot of different things in the frame.
Mhm.
It's all of this like really masterful stuff, uh, technically, that is being, it's not trying to make a big deal out of itself necessarily.
Right.
It is
Yeah.
just, it's trying to make itself invisible. It's trying to, like, they wanted to make their cuts invisible as often as possible, which was
Mhm.
what I think Ebert was saying, that Toland, the cinematographer, like
Yeah.
his aim was to make as many of the edits as invisible as possible.
And that is like that's good editing. Also, like the editing in this movie, I think is really, really, yeah, really phenomenal. Greg Toland, who also shot Grapes of Breath, which also looks great. But yeah, it's like I was thinking we were watching this movie, like why do they show this movies to like high school film students or to like I don't think it's a good movie to like get you excited about like the possibilities of cinema, even though it is like an incredibly well made movie
Hmm.
because it's just about like a newspaper media magnate who like loses his soul. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It's like um it's I don't think it's a movie that a lot of like very young people can relate to or really find a lot of excitement in. And I think
Yeah.
watching the movie now, as someone in my 30s, I'm like, yeah, like I get it. This movie has like a lot to say and is like really has some stuff on its mind, you know. But I'm like, I didn't care about any of that stuff when I was 20, you know.
Yeah. It's got a nuanced political message, or if not new, it's a movie that has a political message, and it's got like a nuanced kind of take about like the humanity or lack thereof of like the rich people who it
Mhm.
is skewering, I suppose.
It is also, I think, something that is maybe again is more of like a narrative. thing that is more innovative or sort of fresh, at least? Is it sort of like it's focused on like media and like the way that media kind of
Yeah.
like controls the narrative and sort of controls the way that people's perspectives are. And how like Kane is actively saying like people think what I tell them to think,
Mm, hmm.
which is like I don't know how much that was. I feel like that's like just assumed now. Like I think in 41 that was a bit more about like oh damn that is a strong take to have.
It's media theory, basically. It's the kind of stuff that
Yeah,
people write in college books
it's like
about
that's the stuff that I'm.
manufacturing
Yeah,
consent, you know?
like that's the stuff that I think is like really is like the more groundbreaking stuff about this movie and like the way that
Mhm.
it's produced, the way that it's like it feels like this massive. The scope of this movie feels so big and huge, and it was. I don't think it was that expensive. I could be wrong on that, but it's like it uses a lot of stock footage in pretty seamless ways, especially during like the whole like newsreel thing. You're like, damn, like did they shoot all of it? It's like no, they didn't shoot any of this. It was all stock footage and like
Almost
manipulated
entirely,
in
yeah.
cool ways. Yeah.
One tidbit that I got from the Ebert commentary, which was really great, was that the RKO had their own newsreel team, and so he handed over the editing of that part to the
Oh, nice.
newsreel team so that they could make it like really like it was a real newsreel,
Yeah,
which I thought was
and
great.
I think the authenticity of that newsreel at the beginning also feels somewhat. The fact that it's like using a newsreel for exposition feels. I think that kind of thing has been done before, but it's like it still feels like kind of a fresh idea in this movie. The way that it integrates Orson Welles as Kane into existing footage, I think, is pretty notable. There's like the shot of him next to Hitler that is like I'm not sure how they did that. I guess they just like cut him out and stuck him in there, but
I wasn't sure if like they
um,
did that with a Hitler actor or not.
maybe they did that, right? Maybe they just got a guy to dress up as
Right.
Hitler. They got plenty of those running around Hollywood in 41. Like, sure.
I feel are you talking about Charlie Chaplin? um
Anyone, they're gonna and all the many Hitler parodies that people were thrown at.
I guess there's a possibility that it was doing a Forrest Gump, but
Well, it's like but the idea of like integrating like historical or like sort of present, I guess they weren't historical in 41, but like integrating a fictional character into like these real things also feels like the kind of thing like, oh, that's like again, I feel like calling this movie innovative is like the wrong perspective. It's more that it's just doing things in really smart, fresh ways.
yeah, yeah, it's using
Again, it's
like
it's not that
I
it's
think
doing
to the
stuff that's new. It's just doing stuff really well.
I think yeah sort of in the way that you said before, it's using the tools that it has available to it
Mhm.
very extensively and very masterfully.
Which feels very that feels like a thing that just Orson Welles through his entire career. Just he loves to play with like the form, and he loves like he started like doing theater. It was like doing it's like great, crushed it as a theater guy.
Mm.
Then he's like, I'm
Hmm,
gonna do
hmm.
radio. I'm gonna like play the shadow, and then he's like, I'm gonna like do this crazy radio thing where he's gonna scare everyone, do a fake like news broadcast about Martians. And then he's like, all right, movies. Like I gotta make a movie. I'm gonna like really try to use all the tools. Like it's a movie. I'm not doing a stage play or a radio show. Like what can I do as a movie that I can't do it in those things? And so it's like nonlinear narrative stuff, like integrating like newsreels and things into it. Like all of these cool ideas that I'm sure he was super excited about. And he was like pushing people further than they might have otherwise. Cause like, no, like let's really do something special with this.
Yeah.
And even like later in life, he's like he tried to have a talk show that didn't go anywhere. But it's like there's one episode that exists of the Orson Welles show that is like a crazy talk show that Orson Welles did for one episode where he like does magic tricks and stuff. And I'm like, damn, he was still trying to like break apart the form of these different things. I think his whole life.
You know, there's a perspective kind of floating around that like people give Wells a bit too much credit for this movie. The boy genius who just instantly was good at everything that he did, where or at least like in doing that, their intention is to spotlight the other people, the other kind of notable people were had larger hands in the kind of revolutionary nature
Mhm.
of this movie, in particular Herman J. Mankiewicz and Greg
Mank.
Toland,
Mank.
where like Greg Toland had been doing cinematography for a long time. He specifically wanted to work on this movie, and he specifically often liked working with first time directors because he said that it gave him like a way to play and experiment with somebody who didn't have this kind of established idea from
Mhm.
experience of how movies should be made, right?
Right.
And so like Orson Welles was accommodating all of these people who were allowed to really stretch themselves narratively and
Yeah.
formally.
Well, I mean, Herman Mankiewicz was the guy that had like a real personal stake in this story. That he was like he knew Hearst, and like he used to go to Hearst Castle all the time and get drunk and like go to parties, and like he was the one who had this sort of like insider perspective on William Randolph Hearst as a person, and I think kind of wanted to actually like tell a story about a sort of very lightly fictionalized version of him. I think Orson Welles was also like, "Hey, that sounds cool. Like, yeah, write that up, Mank. Get on it. I'm gonna stick you in a bed for 6 months while you write it." Citizen Kane was also one of the only movies that Mankiewicz like fought for credit on. Like he
Hmm.
was usually like he uncredited writer on all these other things, and that was like the one thing. It's like, no, I feel really strongly about this. I want my name on it. I want credit.
One thing about Mankiewicz
Won an
getting
Oscar for
drunk,
it. So
one thing about Mankiewicz getting drunk that you mentioned is that that part of I'm forgetting the name of Kane's friend who like is the one who kind of
the
doubts
Joseph
him.
Cotton character,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's a part where like, he is faced with having to write a negative review of
Mm,
Kane's second wife's opera,
bad
and
opera.
he gets too drunk. Like he's writing the review and he's kind of he's tortured about it. I'm betraying my friend in a way, but also I feel like he's betrayed himself, and
Hmm.
like I'm gonna lose my job over this. So he gets so drunk and he falls asleep at his keyboard.
And then Orson Welles finishes it.
Yeah, and then and then Kane finishes it. Uh,
Right.
but that is something that not
There's
that
there's
is
there's definitely a bit
that
of
is
a
ins-
mirroring there. Yeah.
well, no, there is a time when Mankiewicz was doing a review at the New York Times of a play, and he got too drunk to. I don't think it was for all of these reasons, but that like
Mhm.
literally happened to him. He got too drunk to finish the review, and then he had this embarrassing thing happen where the New York Times, like, they didn't have the story, and so they were like, sorry, like we have to run the review 24 hours later because our writer got too drunk to write the review of the play.
A quick shout out that I mentioned the editing. I don't know if I knew this. This movie was edited by Robert Wise, a great, well respected director in his own right,
Hmm.
who did a bunch of good stuff. Day the Earth Stood Still, heard of it, a bunch of other stuff too. But anyway, yeah. I mean, what is there to say about Citizen Kane, the movie?
I mean, one thing that I mean, if we're gonna get a little more into the narrative,
Mhm.
one thing that something that you said kind of made me think of, we're talking about like the unconventional structure of the story,
Mhm.
where I think people will say like nonlinear narrative and sort of leave it at that, but this is the same way with a lot of its innovations and kind of impressive things that it does, is that this nonlinear narrative is not just to show off or not just to do something
Mhm.
different. Like
Right.
it is being used intentionally in order to view the story in a certain way. And I think that a lot of nonlinear narratives, it is to add this kind of tension and mystery. But here, to me, what it's being used for is to uh, get across this idea of someone's life as a like how your own life can be reflected by the ways that you have affected other people, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the only because we don't ever get any kind of firsthand experience of Kane, because all of these scenes are coming from interviews with people who he touched in some way through his
Mm.
life, right? And I think it's really notable that,
Like, we're
like,
always seeing other people's memories of him.
we're only seeing other people's memories of them. There isn't necessarily a suggestion that they're like unreliable narrators, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what it is saying is that, like, this is an aspect of him as seen by another person. How, like, basically it's saying that you as a person can be represented, that a meaningful part of who you are can be represented by the opinions and perspectives of the people in
Mm.
your life, and that if you do that enough times, this movie has this, like, rather than just being like a Pulp Fiction style thing, it's like this. I kind of think of it as like a folding narrative. It's like folding over itself
Mm.
over and over again, because it's going from young to old, young to old, young to old Kane,
Mhm.
uh, and it's telling the same story but from different people, and so it's kind of creating a larger picture that you kind of figure is relatively full by the end, just because they've interviewed enough people to get a sense of who he is, right?
Yeah. Except, of course, like, the ending, like, there's, like, the core of him, the private part, the part that he didn't talk to anyone about, is the
Yeah,
thing they're all looking for. They're all trying to find out what Rosebud means, his last words.
yeah,
And, of course, no one knows because he never talked about it because it's his childhood. And it's this
yeah,
thing that seemingly meant something to him, but it affected no one else. It's like, but that is like, it is this, that is the part of himself that, at least my part of my reading of it is like, that is the part of himself that was completely internal, and so therefore it is unknowable. Like, no one finds out what Rosebud means
right.
except we as the audience.
Yeah, it's like almost the only part of the movie that is like an objective perspective. It's the only one where, like, no one, because no one has an insight on it. We only have the kind of objective perspective of the camera to
Hmm.
show us the sled, that and that it's meaningful.
It is also like, in hindsight, you can find, like, immediately after he gets, like, taken away to live with the, like, Wall Street banker guy, the he gets given, like, this enormous, like, ostentatious looking sled for Christmas, and little kid Kane looks so unimpressed with this sled. He's like, "What is this? What is this bullshit?" He's like, "No, he wants Rosebud. That's his good sled."
Yeah, like, it feels a little weird to analyze Kane because, like, everybody's done it. But I mean, I guess I don't
Right.
know. That's
I
what,
don't know if we
like,
have anything new to add to the pile. Yeah, there's like whole books written about this movie.
but to me, right, like, I feel like the kind of like first blush reading of the Rosebud is like lost childhood innocence, right? But like, if we
Hmm.
break that apart, like, what is it? Like, maybe
He's thinking about how green his valley was.
like, I guess to me, right? The whole story is about Kane being an egotist. It's not like, even when, you can kind of see it as like a young and idealistic person who believes in things, like becoming corrupted, and then like becoming a rich asshole, right? But
Yeah,
like,
he's still
he
an
was always,
egotist when he's young.
exactly, that's the thing,
Yeah.
is it's like he is an egotist, and then you watch it change who he is depending on what
Mm.
circumstance he's in, right?
Yeah.
Like, the consistent thing is that he's an egotist, and if he's an egotist in like a situation where he's got like a scrappy newspaper that he's trying to get like attention, like, sure, he's gonna
Hmm.
fight for the little guy. uh
Yeah.
but then when he's an egotist, when he manifests it through his wife, who he considers a project. He's like, I'm going to make myself important by making this person important, or
Mm,
just all of the, all the just rich guy stuff that he does toward the end of the movie.
yeah.
um and so, we don't really see much of Kane before he's rich, but like I wonder if like Rosebud is basically like, it is drawing a comparison between like not just like a sort of generic childhood innocence, but specifically like, and not like a generic money corrupts, but
Mhm.
it's like, would he be an egotist like this if would his like defining characteristic exist if he wasn't rich?
And well, he has that line where towards the beginning of the movie, but towards the end of Kane's life, where he says, if I hadn't been rich, I might have been a great man," or something like that.
Hmm, hmm.
And so there is a bit of sort of like self reflection going on, seemingly, or maybe he's just trying to stick it to his adoptive father one more time. It's like you can't really know, but I do feel like the egotism feels like an intrinsic part of who Charles Foster Kane is. Like the fact that he was rich let him sort of like put that egotism out into the world a lot more. But that feels like it's just sort of a core part of him as a person too much.
Hmm.
A scene that I think stuck out to me more this time than I ever remember it sticking out to me before is the first time he meets his second wife, and he gets like splashed mud on him, and she invites him up to her apartment. Um, is like that's you can definitely see where that relationship went badly and how it was sort of always probably not a good idea. But it's like you can see in Kane where he starts to kind of like possibly fall in love with her, where it's like she doesn't know who he is. He's become like this super famous figure who's like running for mayor and all this stuff at that point. And here comes along this woman who has no idea who he is, but is still treating him with like a lot of respect and kindness. And he's like, damn, this like it feels good to like be around a person who like has no baggage about me whatsoever,
she's
and we're
treating
still
him
having
with
like a nice moment.
kindness she's treating him with a kindness that could only come from somebody who doesn't know who he is.
Right, yeah. But it's like the anonymity there. And he like doesn't try to like deny. He's not like, oh me, I'm nobody. He's like, I'm famous. And he's like, I don't know who you are. And you can see how that he's like, oh, this is like kind of nice. It's kind of nice
Right.
not to have any of this other stuff. And he kind of wants to keep that. You can see why he wants to continue that relationship and also keep it a secret and like kind of keep it compartmentalized away. And then of course that doesn't work out. And that relationship goes very badly. But I don't know. There's a bit of like sweetness to that scene that
Hmm.
I think really kind of sticks out. It's one of the few moments where I think you can kind of see Kane without a lot of external like behavioral stuff going on. Like he's not putting on a show for anyone as much. It's much more of a like one on one. He's just it's like two people in a room having a conversation without any other stuff attached to it.
One of the things that Roger Ebert mentioned in the commentary is that like when he got splashed and had to go up to her apartment, he was on his way on like a solo trip to the warehouse where Rosebud is.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
If it hadn't been for that, he would have like gotten Rosebud back or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. Which it adds like he was kind of seeking something at that
Hmm.
time, and like
Yeah.
even though he found this kind of like innocent, but quote unquote innocent, and it's almost like there was a manipulative thing going on from the beginning. But like he found
Hmm.
this like innocent-ish like thing. There's also this like darkness to it in terms of his larger story, because like he had like this moment where he was reaching out for something, and if he found
Mm.
Rosebud, would he have found the right thing? But instead, like he
Ooh.
what he
Yeah.
grabbed was something that just
A sexy
fed
lady with a toothache.
it's something that fed his worst impulses again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, dang. That is because I did definitely pick up on the thing that's like he was on his way to the warehouse where Rosebud was. Um, but yeah, I really like that kind of perspective on it, where it's yeah, he was whatever headspace he was in that moment, he was like probably looking for something. And yeah, I like how kind of unknowable Kane seems, and at the same time, right? It's like any sort of like famous public figure. It's very easy to kind of armchair psychoanalyze them.
That's what this whole movie
Um,
is. Our armchair
right?
psychoanalyzing a public
Yeah,
figure.
I like how there are no scenes that are like actually purely from Kane's perspective. That it's
Mhm.
like we are only ever seeing him through someone else's eyes. I think is a really cool way of just making a movie like this.
Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention about that too is that, like, we're seeing all of these stories about the people who were in his life, and we're getting a sense of who he is through these people in his life. Every one of those stories ends with someone leaving him, someone being burned
Hmm.
by
Hmm.
him and
Yeah.
telling him to go take a hike. Like he is in this way like sort of defined by the connections that he made, but like the enemies that he made. Like every one of them is just like he was good until he wasn't.
Mm, right. Yeah. At times it feels kind of heartbreaking because it's like you, especially early on, it's like he is very charming and kind of charismatic, and you're like, damn, I can see why people would like follow this guy. Like, hey, he's taking over the newspaper. He's sticking up for the little guy, and then it's like the kind of curdling of how he like treats people around him in each of the different relationships is always really kind of like yes, can be not hard to watch, but at least sort of like, oh damn, that didn't go well, did it?
Yeah.
I did feel like this movie was relevant or like prescient to today in terms of like public figures and like media people and like politicians, but also like so wildly disconnected from like the current culture right now, where it's like, oh, Kane's like running for mayor. It's this big thing, and then like, ooh, he secretly had a love nest with a singer, and it's like that ruins his whole thing. I'm like, that wouldn't happen now. If he was actually ahead in the polls, no one would care. Like that would be in the news for a day.
If
I
you
think
were
in the
if you
movie
were
it
a
happens the day
Democrat, they'd
before,
care.
right? But it is he probably wasn't running as a Democrat for mayor of Chicago, wherever it was. Right, things like that, where it's like it does feel like a lot of the sort of ideas that this movie has about like America
Yeah.
still feel pretty relevant now, even if it's like the America this movie is about is pretty different from what it is today.
American problems are American problems, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Worth just mentioning really quick that the original title of this movie was The American.
Really? I
Yes.
think I'd heard that, but yeah, damn. I mean, would have been a good title, I'm sure. Um,
I
this movie
mean,
does have very good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh, I mean, it kind of indicates like where its head is at. Where like
Mhm,
Kane is not about it's not about Hearst specifically. It's about like
mhm.
the kind of like uniquely American sickness that Hearst represents. That Hearst
Right.
is like
Yes.
a kind of synecdoche for.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that's I think exactly what this movie is trying to kind of put out into the world. I think it does a pretty bang up job. Citizen Kane, pretty good movie. Turns out.
Yeah. So where does Citizen Kane rank as
If
best
we're trying to
movies?
like kind of, I don't think it is the best movie ever made. I don't think you can really put that on any movie, right? Like I think part of what is special about filmmaking to me is how diverse it is, right? Like how
Mhm.
movies can be so many different things, and I think trying to put it all on one thing as like this is the pinnacle of film as an art form. It's like no, then you're. I feel like that's almost antithetical to what film is as an art form. It's like does anyone say? I guess some people say Mona Lisa is the best painting, but like it's like there's no best painting. Like paintings can be so many different things. You can't just be like, this was the best one. We found it. It's the best one. It's a
Uh-huh.
lady. It's like that feels silly to say, and so that's how I feel about calling Citizen Kane or any movie the best movie. I think it's very good. I will say, on that note, so I watched this like 2 days ago. It was playing on 35 millimeter at the Angelica, so I was like, perfect opportunity. I was gonna watch this
Nice.
week anyway. Cool to see it projected on film. By happenstance, I had a ticket to see Batman Returns like half an hour after it ended, so I had to run to the train, take the train to a different theater in Brooklyn, run to the theater, and then I watched Batman Returns. And after the end of I was like, I like Batman Returns more. Like, and if you look at my letterbox, it's reflected there. I gave Citizen Kane 4.5. Like, very good movie. I gave Batman Returns 5 stars and a heart because I love Batman
Wow.
Returns.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
I you have so many arguments like, is Batman Returns a better movie? Whatever, who cares? That
yeah.
night when I watched them both back to back, I was like, I my preference was Batman Returns because that's just like the my vibe, I guess.
The idea of something being the best, it is always coming from some kind of squishy human perspective anyway. Personally, I don't see
As opposed to
any.
what, a robot perspective?
Yeah, like, I mean, some people might
Who are
try and like.
squishy humans?
No, what I'm saying is that like some people might try and like quantify what is the best movie by like taking average scores put
That's
together by all
that
the top
sounds like a robot
critics
perspective.
and like
I
and
think a
like
robot would say this is the best movie because data point, data point, data point.
that's what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is that like if we're to poll how many points this ranks by whoever decides to score movies based on points, maybe it's the best movie ever made. But like, if we are to grapple with the fact that any human who is saying, I think this is the best movie ever made, they are saying, I think. And that means that, like,
Mm,
to me, there is no difference really between this is the best movie and this is my favorite movie. Like,
mm,
they can kind of have different vibes to them, but like anything like that, it's always subjective, obviously.
yeah.
And so it's like, I enjoy making big, bold, declarative statements that like are just for fun because like I I would be more inclined to say that School of Rock is the best movie ever made than Citizen Kane, Like I love School of Rock and there's nothing wrong with it and I have a great time watching it every time. Like
Right.
Citizen
Citizen
Kane
Kane, not a movie I throw on a lot, you know?
it's very dense, it's very rich, it's very smart, it's very well made, but it's like does it have that zhuzh, does it have that little special
It's got some
something?
zhuzh, but yeah, I mean, it's also just like it's kind of a bummer a little bit too.
Uh-huh.
And I think I felt that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because I do think this is very good, and yeah, it's not a movie that I necessarily am like excited to watch very often.
Mhm.
And it's not humorless. It's got plenty of little funny bits in it. There's a lot of really funny like little performance things, especially like Joseph Cotton when he's old and he's in like the wheelchair and he's got a mustache and he's like, "Oh, well, you get me one of them cigars. There's a doctor who has a funny idea that I'm gonna live or something like." He's got like a very
Side note, the makeup in this movie is so, so good.
the old age makeup is shockingly good in this movie. Where
Yeah.
I'm like, how did like what happened between this and like later movies? The old
I
age makeup
saw
is very good.
last year I actually saw like a sort of small presentation from a makeup designer who worked on some Cronenberg movies and stuff. And he was saying that
Mm,
like old age makeup is like the hardest makeup to do. And
yeah.
it's like it's so easy to make it for it to because it's the human face, it's not
Right.
fantastical. It is like it's something that is so so subtle and takes so much skill in order to make old makeup look
Mhm.
convincing,
Yeah.
like
I
actually
think the fact that
convincing.
it's pretty minimalist in this movie, and I think that's what makes it work. Is it's
Mhm.
mostly just like wigs and like a little bit of wrinkly stuff, and also performance. I think all the performance, like Orson Welles plays Kane from like 20 something to like I don't know 60 older. Like he's
Yeah.
runs a pretty, and it's like there's a very clear change in how he holds himself, how his
Yeah.
face looks. It's like yeah, it's like he does a really good job of actually playing the progression of age.
The
Um,
performances sell it really well.
as everyone does, like everyone that you see at different ages, I think does a really good job. Is there anything else we have to say about Citizen Kane?
Really, really good lighting. There's a lot of, I mean, it's like a little blunt, but there are just like so many scenes where people are like saying things and they're like shrouded in shadow. Or at
Yeah,
least like it's the same scene and somebody like steps forward and then like when Kane makes a dark pact with Satan that like he metaphorically like he's just
yeah,
completely in shadow and everyone else in the scene is in light.
you know,
There's a lot of like there's just like so much. I think that's like another thing about all the technical stuff in this movie is that it's like using it all for meaning, right? Like I
yeah,
think that like there are movies that are part of the reason why it's not so obvious with all of its like technical advances and mastery and everything is because it's not like trying to be show offy at every moment. Like it is using
right.
all of this stuff, like all the stuff that it does, it is using it to amplify meaning.
Orson Welles, good director. Turns out.
Cybertron himself.
I
Is that
thought
the
he was a
name?
different character.
Oh, I don't
Cybertron
know.
is
I
the
don't.
planet they're from.
But isn't he a planet?
He, I think he is a planet. I don't know. I haven't seen that movie, so whatever.